So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Men in Nursing at LSBU to mark International Men's Day. My name is Neil Hudson-Basing. I'm the Corporate Events Manager at London South Bank University. I'm delighted to be working with colleagues from LSBU and beyond to deliver this event. Before we get started, I'd just like to take you through some virtual housekeeping, starting with a short statement on respect and dignity. Everyone attending or speaking at an LSBU event, whether in person or virtually, should be treated with respect, dignity, and courtesy. LSBU operates an environment built on equality, inclusion, and acceptance. We value contributions, feedback, and comments, and wish to create a space for sharing, learning, celebrating, and bringing communities together. LSBU does not tolerate any form of bullying, abuse, harassment, or discrimination. Inappropriate behaviour, including that potentially impacts or contradicts LSBU's reputation and values, will be treated seriously and acted upon. Anyone exhibiting any example of this behaviour will also be removed from the webinar. We want our events to be an enjoyable, safe, and warm experience for all. Thank you for adhering to these guidelines. So just to take you through Zoom, we are on Zoom Pro, which means that you can turn your cameras and mics on to engage later during the Q&A. But while the presentations and talks are taking place, we'd like you to keep those on mute if you can. I have enabled closed captioning, which are the subtitles that you can see appearing on your screen right now. You do not have to watch them. You can hide them by clicking the little up arrow next to CC Live Transcript and opt to hide the subtitles, but we do enable them in the interests of inclusivity and accessibility. You can change the view of what you see, and you can do that by clicking the little view button in the top right hand corner. Take comfort breaks as and when you need. We've got a long session this morning and there's lots to get through. Please use the chat box. Far from detracting from an event, it actually complements it, and we love to see your thoughts and comments in there. So please use the chat box to introduce yourselves, let us know who you are, what you do, and where you're joining us from. And finally, please share your thoughts and comments on Twitter, and I'll share our Twitter handle and our hashtag in the chat box shortly. That's all from me. I'm in the background if you have any questions at all. I'd now like to hand over to my colleague, Professor Calvin Morley, Chair of Diversity and Social Justice at LSBU. Calvin, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Neil, and good morning to everyone. As Neil said, my name is Calvin, and I'm a professor here at London South Bank University. I'm also a nurse by background, an adult nurse, and it's wonderful to be opening this event at LSBU, particularly around men in nursing on International Men's Day. Just to say a little quick potted history for those who don't know about International Men's Day. International Men's Day is normally on the 19th of November. That's the date dedicated to it. And you can hear I have an accent. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. And International Men's Day first started out in Trinidad and Tobago way back in 1999. Dr. Jerome Tilak Singh at the University of the West Indies, which LSBU works closely with the University of the West Indies, that is. Right. Sorry. Thank you, Neil. Yeah, so International Men's Day started out in Trinidad and Tobago, and they had representatives from various organizations, including the UN, and the UN actually then petitioned that that event that started off in Trinidad as just recognizing men on the 19th of November 1999 became an international day. And so here we are. So I feel quite privileged to have one of these International Day men events at LSBU. But one of the things International Men's Day has always looked at is the achievement of men, the progress, and also men's health has been looked at. A few years ago, Professor Jane Wills, Dr. Susie Sykes, Professor Sally Hardy, and myself went back to Trinidad and Tobago, and we hosted an International Men's Day event with the University of the West Indies and the Ministry of Health in Trinidad and Tobago, looking at no health without mental health, particularly looking at the health of young men and boys. And we had some papers published around health literacy and men in Trinidad and Tobago from that event. So it is important. And everyone would say, men are more advantaged than women, and we understand our position. And this year, one of the things that International Men's Day focuses on is how we build better gender relations. I think it comes as no surprise why we say this year, particularly for us in the UK, it's really focused on, for example, if you take the Sarah Everett case, of where men and women and how gender violence occurs. And so we're really looking at how we build the relation. And when Phil came to me and came to LSBU and we talked about this, I was really excited when he talked about how we wanted to look at building better gender relations around men and women in nursing. And that doesn't just focus on nursing as such, or nursing colleagues, but also as men in nursing. How do we improve our gender relations with women, and how do we care for female patients? And you would know recently, we've been celebrating Trans Awareness Week, and I have seen some really unkind and horrible comments around trans people, and that still forms part of gender relation. So we really need to look closely. I welcome this event today to say to everyone that we have got a position in society. Men have always had a voice, probably a more dominant voice than women. So we need to look at how we close that gender gap and, you know, really lift our voices with women and lift women's voices up to look at how we improve our gender relations. You know, some of the things people do around International Men's Day is things around, you know, as I say, the importance of gender equality, how we improve relations in society. How do we as men become positive role models? And there is something for us in nursing around becoming positive role models for future nurses. I have the pleasure of coaching someone for the Council of Deans for Health 150 Leaders Program, and he's in Northern Ireland. And he's a student nurse who's a third final year student nurse. And he is looking at developing a men in nursing forum at his university faculty. And he's had a lot of buy-in. So these are things where we begin to look at how we celebrate men, not just celebrate men today, but also look at how men, as I say, we position ourselves, our position in society, how we can use that and our voice to actually build on this year's themes towards gender relations, improving gender relations in society. One of the things is that in nursing is that we have a number of issues around things around how men progress in nursing quicker than women. But as I said, today is about looking at how we build those. And I welcome this, and Phil, that I hope we continue to build an LSBU London Men in Nursing program where we can look at how gender relations are improved. I know initially when this event was launched on Twitter, I personally had a lot of, you know, unkind comments about, you know, why is there a men in nursing program, without asking, you know, it was condemning this program and this event rather than saying, wow, thank you, welcome, Calvin. Women can really, and men in nursing can really help women in nursing and how we can work together. So I'm hoping this event continues after today, Phil, that we continue to grow as men in nursing and that we continue to support this whole year's theme ahead of us, looking at how we build gender relations and improve the working. And there are various ways we can do that. And today I am really pleased when I looked at the participant registration list that there are women who are supporting this event. And it's really good to hear your voices. And it's also really good for you to hear what we're thinking and how we want to approach gender diversity and supporting women. So today we're going to hear from, Phil will tell you, we'll hear from some really wonderful speakers. But I am really pleased to launch this event at London South Bank University this morning. It's a milestone for us to have a men in nursing, you know, handle and a forum. And I hope I saw, I'm going to call out some people. I saw Steve Malone had joined the webinar. Steve, it's so nice to see you online. I haven't seen you for years from Bath Hospital, and now you're a GSTT. So it's great that our hospital trust can join us. And I'm really looking forward to how we move forward to support men, to celebrate men, and also how we use, as I say, our position for the next year to really amplify the voices of women and build and improve those gender relations that we have. So back to you, Phil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you so much. I'm just going to load up my presentation and then I will make a start. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that now. So welcome to the LSBU Men in Nursing Forum. First things first, thank you all so much for coming. I know that a and a bit hour session is a big chunk of busy people's day. So I really do appreciate coming, and it's great to see the people that we have here, colleagues past and present, and lots of people who I haven't met yet, but hopefully we'll get to know each other over the course of the morning. And then, as Neil was saying, we're trying to make some networks and connections via Twitter too. And I will just remind you in a few minutes of our Twitter hashtags that we are using for this event. So my name's Phil Hoddenott. I'm a senior lecturer within the adult nursing division in London South Bank University. I've been at the university for about 10 weeks now, so I'm still classing myself as new, although I'm sure that I can't use that for too long. I've had a interest in men in nursing for quite a few years, obviously because I am a man in nursing, and I was involved with a few internet-based Twitter groups, the Men in Nursing Together campaign, and that's what really sparked the interest with the importance of looking at gender and gender roles within nursing. Some of you in the audience may have seen my previous presentation. I did, I think it was in January, February this year, and I was fortunate enough to be asked by the Buckinghamshire Health and Social Care Academy to do a presentation. Obviously, a lot of the themes are very similar, but I have updated this presentation to think about our London South Bank community, some of the more prevalent issues. As Calvin said, International Men's Day. We're not here to. That needs to be redeployed, and there's some clever financial degree poker. We're not here to wave the men's flag all morning. We are here to think about some of the themes around improving gender relations, and then also think about our role models. And I think role modeling is really important for nursing. I plan to speak for hopefully no more than 30 minutes, so we've got some time for some questions, and some discussion prior to the next session with our wonderful guest panel, who I will introduce near the time. I want to start off with some thanks for this event being launched. So just very quickly, I want to say a huge thank you to Professor Tara Dean, who's our provost at London South Bank University, who has supported this event, given it the green line. Of course, Calvin, thank you so much for supporting this too, and doing such a wonderful opening. Also want to acknowledge Anthony McGrath and Martina O'Brien. Anthony is our Dean for Nursing and Midwifery. Martina is the head of division for adult nursing for supporting this. And last but by no means least, Neil, I want to say a huge thank you. Neil Hudson-Basing is our corporate events manager, and did all the attention to detail that was needed to get us all here today. So thank you all so much. Hopefully that slide is now moved on. If there are any issues with the slides, please do let me know. But as Neil said, we're using the LSBU Men in Nursing hashtag, and also the International Men's Day 2021 IMD 2021 hashtag. I'm very active on Twitter professionally, so PhilHRN is my handle, and I'm sure that many of you have come here today because you've seen the heavy advertising from Twitter. Last time I did this presentation, I was lucky enough to have a social media manager who was in the background interacting with people, but we don't have that this time. But please do interact with us on Twitter. I will read every single one over the day and comment, like, retweet, and network with you. Okay, so really on the back of what Calvin was saying, I wanted to start with this slide. This slide has been changed a number of times. Those of you who have seen this presentation before, it's a little bit different to what I used last time, and I just wanted to address some of the thoughts and issues, and I guess some concerns that I had when we talk about equality, diversity, and inclusion. It always raises a lot of comment, thought, feelings, discussion, which I think is really good, because I think if we talk about things, we can break things down, we can understand each other better. And when I think about some of the unhelpful and unnecessary comments, I always go back to summer of last year when we talked about the Black Lives Matter campaign after the murder of George Floyd, and some of the really horrible comments that we saw around, you know, that it's not just about Black lives, it's about all lives that matters, and all of that dialogue that I'm not here to talk about today. But it seems that if we talk about a group or a minority, something, or someone perceived as out of the norm, as I said, it does raise some interesting and sometimes some unhelpful points. And I liked this slide because it really made me think about a BAME network event that I was asked to attend last year, and it also made me think about a Twitter event that I attended this week, something which Calvin did alongside the Council of Deans around intersectionality. And I think it's sometimes so important that we just stop and listen and understand. And by saying that, I'm not at all saying that we should be silenced and can't raise our opinions and views. But maybe if we do stop and listen, we will understand a bit more. And I just think that that's so important. And we're seeing so much good work happening. I've been reading something this week around a white ally scheme that's being rolled out across the NHS. I've heard about people having reverse mentorship, where there's a younger person going into the mentoring role for a more senior person, for example. So there's so much that we can learn if we do just stop and listen. So I hope today that we can all think about some of the points and to stop, listen, and then to have a really healthy discussion, rather than just kind of sharing points that are maybe unkind or unhelpful, or that don't help us to improve those gender relations. Okay, go to move us on. So this was the photo that I was talking about earlier. So this used to be my professional profile picture, but as you can see, it's quite a few years old now. But this was a picture from the International Men's Day last year, which I was part of when I worked at Buckinghamshire New University. And as a university, very much like London South Bank, they embraced the idea around men in nursing, and think about how we can use it to recognise IMD, but also to celebrate and to think about men's positioning in nursing. And this is still why I'm so interested in men in nursing. And I'm very much want to say that I'm not here for any therapeutic event. I have had and I'm having a really wonderful career in nursing. As you will see, I've worked with many wonderful people, men and women. But I think that nursing really needs to look like the world outside of the NHS, outside of healthcare. So actually having more men nursing can only be a good thing. And I'm going to talk about our crisis in nursing workforce with the amount of vacancies. I'm going to share some of the facts and figures and stats that we've seen this week to really get us to think about actually getting more people in nursing. It's really important. And there's lots of different levels around the image in nursing, around how we promote careers in nursing, but also how we understand what a nurse looks like and who is a nurse. So some more photos now. So these are 3 points in my journey. So on the left hand side, there's 8 people, vision white, and this was taken in 1997. This was a couple of years into my nurse training. As you can see, I'm at the back there, the only man in that picture. However, that's not particularly representative of the men who were in my cohort. I trained at the back end of Project 2000, and I was in a cohort of 26 of us. So that's unheard of now, isn't it? That we have a huge nursing cohorts now. But there were 26 of us, and out of the 26, 6 of us were men. And I remember that we were the talk, the hospital and the school of nursing, as was never before had they seen 6 men all in the same cohort. Then we go into the centre of the screen. So this is my last NHS post. This was taken around about 2010, 11. This was at Imperial College Healthcare, and I worked as part of the 5-person team in the corporate nursing directive, looking at the learning environment across the trust. And again, I worked with 4 wonderful women. I know that Ali James is in the audience today. And again, that I think I was. There weren't very many men working within the department I worked in, but of course, there were lots and lots of men working in the hospital. And then take us almost up to date since 2019, working in the last university before coming to South Bank. This is me and Professor Karen Buckland-Nutt, who I've worked with in many guises over the years. And again, I worked with many men in that university. Just to think about what some of the literature says, and I'll talk about stats coming up, but the literature talks about men being a rare commodity in nursing. But then 6 out of 26, working with a lot of men, both in the NHS and in academia. Well, we're not so rare. My clinical background is emergency medicine, and I've worked with a lot of men, and I know that James Larson is part of our panel, also works in emergency medicine. Something else that I spotted from the literature, which I really didn't like the wording, was about nursing being female dominated. I find that quite a unhelpful word. And yeah, this article I read, it was fairly new. I think it was probably no more than 3 years old. And yeah, I didn't really like that word. But yes, there is a higher percentage of women in nursing, but I wouldn't say that it was dominated. So I wanted to think about, who are my role models in nursing, and this next slide. Obviously this list is really fluid, and I work with many people over my 20+ years. But these are kind of on the top of my head who inspires me, and they're all women, and they're all wonderful women who I've loved working for or working with, or are in leadership positions. So if you will allow me, I'm just going to give them, sadly, only a couple minutes of a spotlight. But they have been really important to the type of nurse and academic I am today. So in the top we have Karen Bonner, who is now the chief nurse at Buckinghamshire Healthcare Trust. I've worked with Karen a few times over the years, as an NHS colleague and then as a university practice partner, and she's just so inspiring. She's the sort of person that I would love to be when I grow up. And then on from Karen, we have Vanessa Sloan, who's the deputy chief nurse at Charlton, Westminster. And again, I find her so inspiring and just such a nice and kind and helpful person. And I worked with Vanessa, as I said, as a university partner in my last organisation. Siobhan Doyle was a ward manager, and then went on to be a modern matron in one of my first jobs as a newly qualified nurse. And I've got her to thank for being in the position that I am today. That she really pushed the for there to be clinical education within nursing, stronger links with the university. So she's always high up on my list of my role models. On to the bottom line, Dr. Catherine Jones, who I know is in the audience today. I've worked for Catherine in 2006, and we kept in touch and remained really good friends, and probably the best line manager I've ever had. And when I was clearing out my desk when I was moving to South Bank, I found a lot of the yearly PDR letters that Catherine used to write to everyone she line managed to celebrate achievements. So it was and is still such a big inspiration. We have Nicole Mcintosh, who's the regional chief nurse for HE London. Haven't known Nicole for that long. I got to know her during the COVID crisis in January, when we had some pan-London meetings, and then I've met her at various events. And I love following Nicole on Twitter. She's just so positive and so kind, and I think that we can all learn a lot from Nicole's kindness. The next picture is a third-year student nurse who I worked with, Shirley Duna. Shirley has now qualified as a registered nurse in Frimley Park A&E, and Shirley was doing her final placement during the first COVID lockdown, which was a terrible time for everyone, but being a nursing student at that time, really challenging. And we were also concerned in university and worried for our students, and we were doing everything we possibly could to make their life a little less scary. And Shirley wrote to me every week via email to ask if I was okay, which I thought was just amazing, given that I was sat at home in a very safe flat in Tufnell Park in London, and she was out there on the front line. So she really inspired me throughout the COVID pandemic. And then last but not least, we have Mabel Akusa. Mabel is a ward manager at West Middlesex University Hospital, and is one of my mentor, supervisor, assessor stars. That she does such brilliant work with students, and works so hard to make sure that the learning experience is positive and helpful and supportive. And again, I wish I could just take a tiny amount of her skill at being able to work with learners in clinical practice. So they're my role models. They're my inspiration, and they're all wonderful women in nursing. So think about the men in nursing, and as I said, I've worked with lots and lots of men, women, all who inspire me. I think about back to the early days, so back to the early mid-90s when I was deciding what I wanted to do and who were my role models. So let's start in the centre. I think we can't talk about men in nursing without talking about Charlie Fairhead. So Charlie Fairhead, a character from the BBC series Casualty, played by Derek Thompson, been in there since 1986. I remember when I said that I was going to go and be a nurse, everyone said, "Oh, just like Charlie." And talking to a few colleagues who are around the same age, they also cite Charlie as kind of someone who's been in their life, that they've likened their journey to Charlie's journey. Just to the right hand side of Charlie, there's a man called Peter Salt. Peter Salt is an actual real person. He's not a character. And Peter was the clinical nurse manager for A&E in Bristol Royal Infirmary. He's since retired. And they say that Charlie Fairhead character was based on Peter, and Peter was a clinical advisor for the BBC on Casualty. I did a 4-week placement in A&E BRI back in the late 90s, and Peter was my mentor, which was amazing. I found it really intimidating at the time because he was very important, but that was an amazing opportunity. He was so skilled and knowledgeable, and again, I really wanted to be like him. I thought that my nursing career was going to take me into A&E, which it did. I thought I would be there forever. And then on the other side of the screen, this is Sam Colby, who again is a Casualty character. This is actor Jonathan Kerrigan, who was in Casualty for 3 years, 96 to 99, when I was doing my nurse training. And he was described as being bright and funny and good at his job. He was out and proud and had bleached blonde hair, and he was someone that I could far more relate to than Charlie or maybe Peter. But I think it's quite interesting thinking about people who have inspired me to maybe go into nursing and who the role models are. Hopefully now we have a lot more real life people who do inspire people to go into nursing and to be good and better nurses. But back in the 90s, that was it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about data. I don't really like data. Most of the research that I have done has been more about story and commentary, but numbers are important, and they can just give us an idea. I'm going to talk a bit more about my story coming up, but as I said, I want to talk about numbers first, so we can maybe see some of the issues around men in nursing and what that looks like in real life. So in the world, we have 28 million nurses in the world, and that's possible to kind of break down too much, because we know that there's that in the UK, registered nurse what we are looking at when we count nurses, but then we know that we've opened up our NMC for register more now, and we have nursing associates. But 28 million seems to be the figure that hasn't changed too much. Under 3 million of these 28 million are men, so that's just under 10% globally on men in nursing. If we look at our at where the most men in nursing are, that's in the UEA and in Jordan. Sorry, UAE, United Arab Emirates, and specifically Jordan, where there's virtually a 50-50 split of men and women nursing. US, there's about 13% of men in nursing. Canada, 8%, and at the bottom of the list, there's China, that only has 1% men in nursing. And there's a paper that's been written last year, I believe, that has a lot more detail about European numbers. It's really, really interesting, and that would be good to compare and contrast. But let's bring us back home and think about what our numbers in the UK look like. So these numbers are hot off the press. Those of you who are on Twitter and follow the NMC and Mark Radcliffe and lots of other people will know that the mid-year data report was published this week. So in the UK, we have 10.88% of people on the register are men. So that can be registered nurses, obviously all the fields, registered midwives, and now nursing associates. If we look at the number of men who are registered nurses, that falls at 12.97%, so nearly 13%. So we are above the global average. Just to compare, if we look at midwifery, only 1%, I think under 1% of registered midwives on the NMC register are men. Obviously, we talk about men and women, male or female. The world is changing, and we are recognizing non-binary and people who don't fit into a standard gender description. It was interesting that the NMC said that there's a growing number of people who are saying they prefer not to say, whether that's because they are careful of their information and data, or whether they do not fit into the male or female description, I don't know. And also 0.7% saying that their gender does not match their sex at birth. So again, there's lots of interesting things to talk about here around trans and non-binary, and how we maybe invite people to identify themselves outside of the male or female. This is a little data now, a couple of years old, but I think this is a interesting image of the UK, just to see how our four nations compare. So England, Wales and Scotland, all between 9 and 11% of the nursing workforce is male. Northern Ireland only 6.6%. Calvin says that he's mentoring Ryan from Northern Ireland under the Council of Dean's 100 to Lead scheme. I'm meeting with Ryan next week, so I'm really interested hear about his experiences and how he sees being a man nursing in Northern Ireland. To London's South Bank. So if you look across the university, we have 56, nearly 57% of our student population are female, and 43 are male. And if we look in our school of nursing and midwifery, around about 88% of our students are female and 12% are male. If we look across the fields of nursing, we see 11% of our students in adult nursing are men. So that's just above the global number. Only 3.8 in the child field. It's great that we've got Charlie here today, one of our child field students, to talk to us. And then 32% in mental health and learning disability field are men. So that's always see a bigger number in that field of nursing. Okay, so enough for numbers now. I wanted to talk a little bit about me and my journey. This is a very self-indulgent time, so I again thank you for coming and for listening. But I just want to touch on some points about gender, masculinity, image, and progression. And I've kind of used some quotes that I've heard during my career, or friends and colleagues have told me of what they've heard. And I said that I wanted to have some time for questions and discussion. So I might not talk about everyone, just some of the key ones. Around does nursing has a gender? Often get asked if I'm a male nurse. I'm sure that many of you who are men in the room today. I know when I last worked with James, often talked about that you can walk into a ward, a bay, a department, and you've got a uniform on, the badge that says, staff nurse, charge nurse, registered nurse, and people still say, can you get one of the nurses? And just think about some of the advertisements that we see. It is often of a female nurse rather than a male nurse. But saying that, things are changing. I was walking home from Starbucks the other day, and I saw a We Are Nurses campaign. It's nice to see a man there. And also this is a gentleman called Malachi, and I can't remember his surname, but he's done quite a lot of promotion around nursing in general, but he's as a bit of a poster person to advertise nursing careers. I think that's great for getting men in nursing, and to also make sure that our advertising is diverse. I think this is fascinating that doctors are he and nurses are she. We still have that, and I remember when I said in my secondary school that I wanted to be a nurse. There being lots of laughs at that girl's job, and I think about some of the titles that we use in nursing too, around sister, matron. They have a very they people say, how can you be a matron and be a man, because matron is a female role. One thing that I did really like is the comment on the right hand side of my screen, and this is from a student's exam paper that I mark. I see this quite a lot, and even when they write a narrative about how they would take care of a patient who is deteriorating. Nurse is always a she, and the doctor is always a he. And just the kind of notion that, did I want to be a doctor one day? I'm still asked that today. That I speak to someone and say, "Oh, so you're a male nurse?" Yes. And do you want to be a doctor one day, or could you not be a doctor? Which I always find quite an interesting conversation to have. Masculinity and nursing. Often when I turn up and work clinically, I'm told, I'm glad that we have a man here today, because we've got patients who are confused, patients who are violent, or we've got some very very dependent patients that we could do with your muscle. And I think you can all see I'm not particularly muscly, and I worked with a wonderful lady called Maggie, who used to go after a 12.5-hour shift and go lifting 90-kilogram weights. So she had far more muscle than I had. Comments around, do you usually work in A&E? There seem to be places for men in nursing which are more acceptable. A&E, ITU, with critical care type of area. Sexual health, that seems to be another area. Say that you work on a medical ward or a care of the elderly ward, that's something which raises an eyebrow. And the question back now, did I go into nursing to find a wife? Certainly did not. So often get comments by patients around, I bet the women love working with you. That's from male and female patients. The image of men nursing, the kind of thought that to be a man in nursing, you must be gay, or male nurses, hairdressers, and cabin crew are gay men. Yeah, there might be a higher percentage, but certainly not. And speaking to many heterosexual men, often find this quite difficult to manage and how to respond. A friend of mine, children's nurse, and it'd be great to hear later from Charlie, just that that being in mental health or in adult nursing is okay, but to be a man in children's nursing, that's strange. And just this notion that men can't be caring, or caring is a feminine trait. So it's something that I hear an awful lot. I just want to finish this part of the presentation thinking about career progression. And I think this is something that we have to take notice of. I speak to my friends about men in nursing, and often say that men always climb the ladder quickly, or if a man and a woman goes for a job, a man gets it. And I've been reading quite a lot around glass ceilings, glass escalators, sticky floor. There was some research that came out of this university that really looked at numbers of and the mismatch of the low percentage of men in nursing and the high percentage of men in senior roles in nursing. I think it's important. We must pay some attention to this to understand. I think that we mustn't confuse with making sure that nursing is open to men and women, that we don't make that a barrier for not wanting to get more men in nursing because of this issue. All the papers that I've read around this do say that we have to do some more work and do some more analysis and get some more narrative on this, and not just look at numbers. I think that's really important. That's one of the things that we must continue to talk about, so we understand this. this better. I was really interested to see a NHS trust that was really looking at their recruitment processes, really making sure that the recruitment and selection process and panel really does represent everyone, whether it's ethnicity, age, gender. So I think that there is somewhat going on around this, but we really must look at this a little bit more. I've certainly learned something with preparing this presentation and working Calvin and Neil on this event. So yeah, it's definitely something that we must go back to. So what's next? Where next? I think we can do a lot more. And I was really thrilled that, as I said, people in Southbank have been so supportive. It's really great to be able to collaborate with the Southbank Nursing Society, which Charlie is part of, as well as the Student Union. I said that I'm speaking with Brian, who Calvin is mentoring. So I hope that we can talk more about men in nursing on a national level. And I think I think it's important to have the conversation in Southbank, but let's have that conversation in London. And I would really welcome in our session before we close people's thoughts on how we can look at issues around getting more men into nursing and think about some of the different supports that we can offer around London to address some of our shortfalls and vacancies. This slide, I want to go back to where I started, that equality, diversity, and inclusion. It's so complex, and I often think, when we talk about EDI, is this about ethnicity? Is this about equal rights for women and women's safety? And of course not. EDI is everything and everyone. So I think we have to make sure that we don't limit ourselves, and we can talk and work together. There's room for everyone on this EDI spectrum, but wouldn't it be really good if we could talk and work together more, because we're all hopefully doing it for the same reason. I know that John Eldis is on the call this morning, and John is one of our senior lecturers in adult nursing. He's also our EDI lead. I really do think that we need to, as a division, a school, an institute, university, nationally, really need to think about how we promote our image of nursing. I received some criticism on Twitter around the picture there, which is a London Southbank promotional picture, that it was two white men doing some clinical skills on a white mannequin. So we really do have to think about the image that we use. This was a image that we used in Buckinghamshire New University, and I think this is nice. We don't want images of there being hundreds of men in nursing. We want our images to be representative of our students, of our population, on lots of different levels. So maybe John, that's something that we can talk about moving forward. So just to finish up, we have a real opportunity. I work with lots of men who are nurses in Southbank. They're a very shy bunch. Of them, I asked them all to send me a photo, and these were the people who did. But we've got some great role models in Southbank and in London that I think that we should recognise and celebrate, and really help be the new Charlie Fairheads of the 2021 and beyond. So back to really where where I started. Getting more men into nursing can only be a good thing because we need to get more people into nursing. So I read somewhere on Twitter that we shouldn't get more men into nursing because that stops women coming into nursing, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think there's room for a lot more people in nursing. And that's me done. I've spoken for a little bit longer than I was planning, so apologies. Thank you for listening. Do connect with me on Twitter, and I think Neil, we have some time for some questions, some discussion.
Hi there. We do. There's a couple of comments, Phil. So I'll read those out to you. So we're just waiting for one of our guest speakers as well. So that'll buy us a little bit of time. Susan says it's interesting to see how we can all perpetuate differences rather than considering that we are equal. I pledge to be more conscious of this in my own behaviours, and that was following on from Calvin's pledge. I pledge this year to do my best to listen to how I can improve gender relations. So there's some pledges coming through, so do keep those coming. What's your pledge? Please feel free to share those in the chat box. Calvin says really important point to think of EDI and its complexities. And then Nicole says thank you, Phil, this has been an inspiration and passionate talk. Happy International Men's Day. If
really nice.
Anyone has any questions, please do feel free to pop your camera and microphone on. You are very, very welcome to ask Phil your question now. Otherwise, I think, Phil, we might move on to our speakers. Oh, Catherine, we'll come over to you. Feel free to pop your camera and mic on.
Sorry, I can't get my camera on. I'm
no
not
problem.
used to Zoom. Yep, no, here we go. The host has stopped the video. I can't put it on because you've stopped my video.
Give me
Must be something to, yeah. No worries. I just was going to say, I found it really fascinating. So I worked with Phil for a long time at Imperial. And the only reason I came across the event was I knew Phil had moved on, and I was Googling to try and find his new email address, because I know the London South Bank ones were really tricky. So I didn't really know about this event. I think it's fascinating. I found it really interesting that Calvin said that International Men's Day was from Trinidad and Tobago. And the other fact I thought was really interesting was that in Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, that half the nurses were men. I just was really fascinated by that fact, and it made me wonder, is that because women aren't being nurses there? You know, that there's so many things that you could debate about this. But yeah, no, just to say, fantastic that you're having this event. And some of the data is just really interesting. So really more of a ramble and a comment, really.
Thank you.
Okay. Calvin?
Hi, Neil, and thank you so much, Phil. And Catherine, just following on from you, it's really interesting. I examined a thesis last year during the lockdown. He's now Dr. Irtiaz Qureshi, and his thesis looked at South Asian men in nursing and the barriers to South Asian men. And one of the things he drew on, he looked at the history of nursing, and he pointed out that men were the pioneers in nursing before Florence and Mary Seacole and all of that. And the thesis is available online, and he's published a few papers around that. I think more recently, he did something in the BMJ. He had it on Twitter. But it's really interesting how he sort of plotted, really catalogued rather than plotted out how men in the history of nursing and where they have been. I know the next speaker is on, Neil, but I'll let Nicole go and I'll stop there, okay? Because I realize Wellington's just come on.
Thank you. Hi there, Wellington. We'll be with you shortly. Nicole? Hi.
Thank you very much. I just want to come on because I think Phil doesn't know how inspirational he is. And I only learned about this event this morning, and it really struck me. It was Catherine who notified me that it was happening. I think more needs to be done to raise the profile of men in nursing and events like Happy International Men's Day. So I just wanted to come on and thank Phil for that journey. I was a bit shocked to see me included, Phil. So next time we see each other, we'll take a selfie.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
great that you could be here.
Thanks, everyone. Please do continue to use the chat box to share your thoughts, comments, your pledges. We love to see them. Also share them on Twitter, and I've popped the hashtag and our Twitter handles in the chat box. Phil, I'm going to hand over to you to introduce our next segment.
Thanks, Neil, and thank you for all your comments and questions. Okay, so this is the best part of the run now. We've brought together a panel of 4 really super and inspirational men in nursing, just to come and talk a bit about their journey. So I'm going to introduce them all, and then Neil's going to let us know the order. But we're going to start off with Wellington Mccarla. Great to see you here, Wellington. Thank you again. Wellington is the Executive Chief Nursing Officer for North East London Foundation Trust, and is also a very important part of our South Bank alumni. And Wellington was a student here with us, and I've only recently got to connect with Wellington. So again, thank you for coming. We've also got Edwin De La Cruz, who is the Head of Nursing Practice Development and Education from Chelsea and Westminster Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust, and Edwin and I have worked together for many years. We also have James Larson, who's ward manager at the Emergency Medical Admissions Unit at Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust within St Mary's Hospital. I met James for the first time a few weeks ago when I did a clinical shift. So thank you, James, for coming. And we also have Charlie Kennedy, who is one of our London South Bank students in children's nursing, and very active with the South Bank Nursing Society, and also within the SU. So I think we're going to hand over to Wellington first. So over to you, Wellington.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really great honor to be here and to be back in South Bank, really where it all started for me. So really grateful, and thank you for everyone who is here. What I would try to do, I think, suppose we have seen these slides before, but I will try to see whether it works. I've got like a couple of slides which I will just run through, and hopefully colleagues can see it.
Yeah, we can see that
one. Anyone see anything?
Yeah.
All right, lovely.
Perfect.
So I think it was just really, was just thinking about the whole concept around men in nursing, and I just really thought about what that really means for me. And I think we had been given like really a number of questions which we wanted to look at. So I think I'm talking about 4 questions. So I will try over the next 10 minutes to just try to run through that. Yeah, so who am I? Wellington Mccarla, registered mental health nurse. I did my training with South Bank University, 2001, finished in 2004. I also did my executive master's in public administration, again with South Bank from 2013 to 2016. And I'm currently the executive chief nurse for North East London Foundation Trust. So the first question was really around actually asking who I am, and actually really know sometimes I think we ask this question and actually we struggle about who we are and who we have become. So I've tried to kind of maybe to answer this in a different way. So this is me. I think the first picture I was I think about 23. I was in Zimbabwe. The second picture was 2012, 2013 in North East London Foundation Trust, where we're launching an initiative which was really looking at ethnic minority people and access to leadership within the NHS, and actually how difficult are some of the barriers and what can we do to remove some of those barriers. The next one I think was 2018, where we'd been invited. I was invited by Ruth May to talk about some of the stuff which we've done in inclusion And I think really over the next 10 minutes or so, I think I'll probably be able to look at actually the concept of the inclusion around being from an ethnic minority background. Then you also have got the concept of inclusion as being a man in nursing. What do we know now? And what we know at the moment, I think the report from NMC came out yesterday, which says 11% of nurses who are registered nurses by NMC, it's only 11% who are men. So that means 89% of those are females. And I think, and you start to look at actually what does that look like really being a man? So the concept around inclusion and belonging, I think those concepts about me being Black, and then you've got the part around being male, and that you're trying to work with those. So I've done some work around that with NALFT, and that's kind of maybe why we're having conversation with Teresa May around that. And I cannot talk about who I am without talking about my mother. So everything really kind of really starts and finish with my mother for me, really. I believe that I am because she is. I think there's something about the values of who we are and what drives us. So I'm always quite grounded about how it works for me. And I think it's really, I think that's always quite helpful. I think around like maybe just that reminder. I remember, I think when I went to number 10, and we took pictures like everyone does, and so everyone will take pictures and share pictures. So I think I took this picture and I sent it to my mother. And my mother, normally when she sees some of these pictures, she gets excited and she'll text me back and say, "Oh, that's really good. Where were you? What are you doing?" But on that day, she took about 5 minutes before she came back to me. And I was wondering why, and actually there was nothing really about coming back. Then 5 minutes later, she sent me this picture. And she says, "It's good that you went to number 10, but never forget number 13. Number 13, that hut is my grandparents' farm. That's where I was born. I was born in that hut." So there's something about actually when I talk about who I am, I always then try to connect of actually where I've started from. So there's something about actually whatever we achieve and whatever we're able to do, that part of actually being able to tell the whole story. So there is that part about actually myself as an individual. It becomes very difficult sometimes actually if we then get compared to someone who might have been born in a different environment. So if I say I was born in that hut, someone else's life experience is different. But when we come into NHS and we come into some of these roles, there is this assumption that we are all on an equal path and we're all able to achieve the same thing. But I think there's something about acknowledging that our journeys to get where we are has been very different. So I think that will always remind me when I think about who I am. My journey so far in nursing. So nursing has opened so many doors for me to get where I am. 2001 in May, I was enrolling as a student nurse in South Bank. We did most of my classes were in Haroldwood, the Harold branch. So I kind of really, that was the journey. So from then until now, I've changed jobs, I think about 17 times in that period. And it's been really an exciting journey. And I think what I've learned around that role is really about actually how many doors nursing can open for you and actually what you are able to do. But I think it comes with also some challenges around that path. And I always think, again, when we think about actually who we are, there is a part around actually what I've learned, I think, around being a male in nursing, but also being a Black man in nursing. I think it comes with another additional challenge around being a Black man, because I think being a Black man, actually, you are almost celebrated when you do well. When things are going well, you're celebrated. I've seen that in my experience of my own career, experience of other people. So there's this part about, it's almost, I think I remember like when I went through one challenge at one time, and I was trying to explain this to my mother, about what I'd gone through. Was actually I'd gone through a difficult process in the organization, suspended for about 3 months, going through an investigation, which came back with actually nothing and said actually it was all right with, people don't even say that they'd made a mistake. And actually you find yourself, and actually you then start to learn that like you are more likely to go through a discipline process if you're Black, you're more likely to go through that process. But actually as a man in nursing, actually I've experienced some of that journey. And I was saying to my mother, it felt like the Ben Johnson story, that actually when he was doing well, he was Canadian. So the system was supporting him, he was acknowledged, everyone was happy, everything was working well. And actually then there was a question where he was also asking himself who he was. When he became a gold winner, he was Canadian. When he was now questioned about whether he was using drugs or not, he was Jamaican Canadian. When he was stripped of all the gold he had won, he suddenly became Jamaican. So like now he's only known as Jamaican. So there's that part about, as we're shifting in that nursing path, actually there's sometimes actually where you are always then when you're going to ask yourself who you are, but there's something about actually how do we create some of those environments which allow people to remain who they are, so that we don't question. I have done those 3 parts in my career where I've questioned who I was at different parts, where the system celebrates you. But I think when sometimes the same system celebrates you, when we make mistakes, the system is supposed to support us. But actually sometimes the system will spit you out, and actually you have to then become good and then come back again. So there's something about that just and compassionate part which affects who we can and we can be in our nursing journey. Then something about actually the priorities. I think I just thought that maybe in my role as the chief nurse for the organization, I've got one priority and one main priority alone, which is around involvement. So actually, it's really around actually getting it right. So actually, in the middle of that, on that slide, is really around involvement. It's about actually how do I make sure that actually involvement is at the center of everything we do, that we get it right around patient outcomes, we get it right around our clinical leadership. We make sure that actually maybe we deliver care in good quality, make sure that like maybe like the experience of our staff is really good. We need to get it right around that part, but there's something also around the experience of our service users. And I think we are all governed, I think in NHS, by the culture of the organization. So there is that part for me about actually getting it right around culture. So this really wakes me up every morning. This drives me every single day, because I know that if I can get this part right, then the outcomes and the experience of people who use our services becomes good. The outcome and the experience of people who are working in our services. So there's something about if the people who are delivering care are not cared for, actually what type of care would they deliver? And as a chief nurse, it's my responsibility in my job to make sure that actually we get that part right. Then there was a part, I think, which was being asked around question 4 around being a man in nursing. What are the challenges and what some of the successes? I think I've kind of like really I'll probably like talk about the challenges as a Black man, not just being a man in nursing. And the challenges of being a Black man, I think it's around that journey of equality, equity, and justice, where you are always feeling that actually you have to do extra, where you're always feeling that you have to do more. And actually there's a lot which is being done around this journey. But actually I have come to this conclusion that actually as we do and we talk a lot about equality and diversity, but for me, I think equality and diversity is having a seat at the table. Actually, where we celebrate that people have got a seat at the table, but there's something about equity and justice, about making sure that actually people have got a voice. But actually my challenge every single day when I go to work and when I speak, and even like for us in this conversation, is about actually how do we create a place where we've got justice and belonging, where we make sure that people's voice is being heard, that we're able to make a difference, that we're able to make an impact. Those are some of the challenges which we face every single day, especially when you're coming from an ethnic minority background. And the success, there's lots of success in. I think I look at myself as the journey which I've come through, I think really trained as a student nurse in 2021, I know in 2001, and then actually becoming a chief nurse in 2021, 20 years later, actually, and actually really walking through that journey. I think it's some of those things which really ordinarily you will not be able to get to. But actually, what does that really success mean for me? I think it's really seeing your goal, being clear about actually what you want to achieve, understanding the obstacles, because there will be obstacles, but actually having that, creating a positive mental picture of where you want to get to, and actually being clear in our mindset of actually trying to remove any doubt of where we need to land, and embracing the challenges, because challenges are not bad. Sometimes we just need to embrace them and stay with them. And actually then how do we make sure that we stay on track? And if we can do that, then as men in nursing, we can show the world that we can do it. And what we need to do is to get to a place as men in nursing where we can say, I can, I will, and I must. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wellington, for that. We'll be back with you shortly for some questions, so please do stick around. Our next speaker, we'd like to welcome Edwin De La Cruz, Head of Nursing Practice Development and Education at Chelsea and Westminster. Edwin, over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Phil, for inviting me in today's Men in Nursing Forum. I'm very honored, and at the same time, I'm very humbled to be in this forum, especially listening to all the speeches earlier. It was fantastic that we're making a difference in nursing. So So my name is Edwin De La Cruz. I'm the head of nursing, practice development, and education at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. So I'm going to share you a short presentation. I need to make sure that I finish in 10 minutes, and that's a promise. Okay, so I hope you can see the front of my presentation there. And just to start with my journey, I was actually born in the Philippines. So for those who do not know where the Philippines is, it's in Southeast Asia, and we're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and the South China Sea. So we have more than 7,000 islands, and I was born and bred in the northern part of the Philippines, which is called Pangasinan. So I started my nursing in a university called Lyceum Northwestern. And I started when I was a teenager. That's me, when I was 17 years old. So I started nursing, and just to let you know that nursing in the Philippines is 4 years, and it is all delivered in English. And I completed the Bachelor's in Science in Nursing and passed the board examination in 1990. I also passed and completed my professional teacher's qualification in 1992 at Urdaneta City University, and completing my master's degree in public health at Fairhead University in the Philippines as well in 1995. Now, that's me when I started doing my nursing career.
Sorry, Edwin, we actually can't see your presentation. We actually can't, it's not moved along, so it's just on the page one. So I think you need to,
okay.
No, so I think you need to go to enable editing and then put it into slideshow mode.
Okay, let me just, sorry about that.
No problem.
I wonder if there seems to be a technical glitch here. Phil, would you be able to share that in your PC?
You'd like Phil to share it, Edwin, if you could stop sharing, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Give me 1 second, Edwin, and I'll just...
Apologies for the technical glitch.
No problem. Right. I think we got up to here, yeah?
That's correct, yeah. So that's me when I was 17 years old. I started my pre-registration in 1986, and obviously completed my nursing degree and passed the board examination in 1990. I also did my professional teacher's qualification and also my master's degree, also in the Philippines in 1995. Next slide, please. And that's my picture when I started my career as a nurse. I'm still very young during that time. But obviously I started from staff nurse going to what we call as a supervisor in the Philippines. And it was a lovely challenge for me because obviously during that time, we haven't got many men in nursing during this period. Next slide, please. And obviously, moving forward from 1997, actually, I was a clinical instructor. It's a very similar-ish link lecturers post in the Philippines, but we have to work with students in the clinical area. And from that, I became the Dean of Nursing at Lyceum of Northern Luzon in the Philippines. That's my picture on the right-hand side there with my colleagues in the university. I think I still have my hair there, like the 90s when we have the Boys Zone and Westlife during that time. Next slide, please. And in 1999, so that was 22 years ago, that was Tony Blair's time from the Labor government. They did a lot of recruitment around the world. And one of the countries they went to is the Philippines. And I was young during that time, and I thought, oh, this must be a good adventure. I was told the salary is 10 times the salary that we receive in the Philippines, even as a Dean of Nursing. So I said to myself, I'll try and apply in London. And there you go, in 1999, I was so excited. We visited the many beautiful spots in London and with my colleagues there in 1999. Next slide, please. And I started working in an NHS trust called Ashford Hospital, which is located in near Terminal 4 in Heathrow. So these are my challenges actually and triumphs, I would say, because we started as what we call as healthcare assistants grade A during that time. You can imagine the difficulties that I have to be in. From Dean of Nursing with more than 8 years of experience in the Philippines, you have to start as a healthcare assistant. The new nurses coming now are much more better because they start as Band 3. However, during that time in 1999, you need to start as HCA A grade and do the adaptation course in nursing for 6 months. And after 6 months, I was promoted as staff nurse in a ward called Bronte, which is a respiratory and cardiac ward in Ashford Hospital. And since then, I managed to go to grade D posts up to the deputy charge nurse. I really love the hospital. However, it merged with St. Peter's Hospital, and I was told we need to transfer to Surrey, where I prefer to go to London. That's the reason why I transferred to West Middlesex Hospital. And I managed to get a charge nurse G grade during that time at the medical assessment unit. And from then, I was promoted from G grade to Band 8A, head of faculty of nursing, until we merged with Chelsea and Westminster Hospital 6 years ago. And then I'm now the head of nursing practice development and education. Quite a lot of challenges being an international nurse, especially that during that time as many nurses in men in nursing in 1999. And I've been asked a lot of times, why did you select nursing? Why did you do nursing? In fact, when I also started, I'm not familiar with some of the equipment. A healthcare assistant is doing the blood sugar machine. And I have asked her, oh, can you teach me how to do that? And I was told, who is the qualified nurse here? I felt really degraded during that. However, I managed to put the negative to a positive and try to learn as many as I can through good mentoring by my colleagues. And I managed to do that. At the end, that healthcare assistant who told me that before is one of my best friends. Next slide, please. So it's not all about challenges as well. We all need to have fun as well, working in the National Health Service. I love traveling, and also I love to go to so many lovely places and doing cruising with my family. I'm happily married with 3 children, but look at that picture in 2012. That's actually Danny Boyle with me on the right-hand side when I joined the Olympics 2012 as cast of the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games and the opening ceremony and closing ceremony as well of the Paralympics Games. Next slide, please. So, because I know how hard it is as well in the Philippines and my community being a BAME group as well, I always make sure to give back to our community, and I'm very much involved with a lot of charity events. One of the pictures on the left-hand side on the top, when we have the strongest typhoon, which happened in the Philippines when it killed more than 6,000 people, we did a lot of fundraising, and that motivated me actually to join and organize groups. In fact, I was a founding member of the European Network of Filipino Diaspora, wherein we managed to organize quite a lot of events, help our community, and also those less fortunate people. And I managed to help as well the Philippine Embassy with a lot of training, leadership and management, and a lot of health issues training as far as Czech Republic and other embassies in Europe. And as you can see there on the bottom, I don't know if it's clear, but we had a dialogue with our London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, regarding the plight of the BAME community, the Filipino community, as well as looking at the difficulties we have as well. And it was very fruitful that I'm also one of the speakers and always the voice of the Filipino community. Next slide, please. And I think these pictures are a collection of some of the awards I was given. On the top left-hand side is when I won the Leadership Award as a ward manager of Medical Assessment Unit in West Middlesex Hospital. So we have the MP during that time and the Chief Executive. But I also received a few awards from the Filipino community and the European Network of Filipino Diaspora with leadership, health innovation, and other awards. I'm showing you this to ensure that I inspire you, that despite the fact that we are from the BAME community, we know that we can do a lot. Next slide, please. Before I leave, I would like to leave you with this my favorite quote, actually, from Samuel Johnson, when he said, "Great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edwin, for your presentation. We'll be back with you shortly for some questions, so please stick around. Our next speaker is James Larson, Ward Manager for Emergency Medical Admission at Imperial College. So James, over to you.
Thank you, Neil. And thank you, Phil. I just want to start by saying thanks for this opportunity. It's a great honour to be able to put ourselves on this platform as men, to put ourselves on a platform as male nurses, so that hopefully more men in the future will see this as a role that they can take part in and join the male nursing community. So I'll start by just saying who I am. So I'm James Larson. I'm a male nurse originally from the Midlands. I grew up in a place called Lichfield, and throughout school, I never really knew the nurse's role. I know Phil mentioned about the programs on TV. I wasn't much of I'd never used to watch TV too much, and I was more into sports, and because of that, I never really got a real image or I suppose an idea of healthcare at all. And I think my role models in school were people that were maybe teachers or sports teachers. And I think at first that was my probably goal when I was younger in school, was to grow up and become a teacher and to inspire people and to teach people skills that they can take on in life. And I did a little bit of that when I was about 14, 15, teaching some of the younger kids, either in football training or in school in the younger years in lessons. And I found that I didn't enjoy it, and I couldn't really put my finger on why I didn't enjoy it. But at the same time, my mum had just qualified as a mental health nurse at 44, and I saw her go through her nursing journey. And at the same time, my three sisters also did nursing in separate fields. So one was an adult nurse, one was a mental health nurse, and one was a children's nurse. It's quite a unique scenario for me to watch growing up. So as I said, I had zero nursing exposure or healthcare exposure, and within about 5 years, I'd seen the whole shebang, really. So I suppose when I found teaching wasn't my passion, I looked at my mum and my sisters coming home from uni and school, and they seem to really enjoy all the different aspects, and it really inspired me to think, I love communicating with people. I love talking to people and meeting new people, and I also love biology as well, and I think that was a big factor in why I moved towards sort of like you say, healthcare and biology, and I was very apprehensive about taking the leap and applying for a degree in a job that I'd had absolutely zero experience in. And I fortunately didn't do too well in my second year, my final year of A-levels, and it meant that I got a second chance to redo the final year, and I took that opportunity to work as a healthcare assistant in a care home, a very nice care home, and it was a elderly dementia unit. And I suppose to myself that was the moment in which I'd find out whether me as a 17-year-old boy could deal with all the aspects of healthcare, such as personal care, seeing things that really, as young people, we weren't exposed to. And I think that really cemented to me the passion that I have for people, and the passion that I have to care for people, essentially, and make people's lives better, even though they can be vulnerable, even though they can be going through really torrid and horrible times. I think as a nurse, your job is you communicate with people, and you put people at ease. And although you do a lot of complex things nowadays with medicines and there's a lot of clinical competence, I think the basics of nursing is just being there for people whilst they're in a very vulnerable state. And I found that when you've got people in care homes, and the horrible scenario where people's loved ones are becoming they're developing dementia and they're not recognizing it, it's that holistic approach towards the families and stuff that I really grew to love that job. And looking back, it's still one of my favorite jobs I've ever done. But moving on, I went to I applied for university. I got into the University of Derby, which was a very small cohort of 55 compared to, I'm sure Phil will know, the larger cohorts now, which I think can exceed 100, maybe 150, maybe more. And a small cohort of 55, there was just 3 men in adult nursing. I think the statistics, the numbers for the mental health group were a little bit more, and we had lectures together. But yeah, just 3 men, and I found that quite shocking when I first attended university, that there was only 3 of us. And then I suppose I came out of university. I got a job in Derby, a bit like Edwin, on the medical assessment unit as a new band 5. And I think I became a band 6 quite quickly. And I suppose a little bit of a success story, and this is for everyone, is your mentors have such a huge impact on you over the course of your training and your first, and throughout your career, I'm sure. But for me, my mentors that I had, I had to give them complete credit and honor, really, to be able to have been looked after by them and to be taught the things I've been taught. I've managed to become a band 6, and then I've moved to London in January of 2020, probably the worst time to move to London, just shy a few months of the pandemic, and to a similar role, a charge nurse of a medical assessment unit, and then as COVID sort of transpires and I go to ITU and respiratory HDU, and then come back. And then luckily this year I've managed to secure a job in February as a ward manager now for a medical assessment unit. And I hope to go on and I'm a bit tied between the leadership or the clinical role. I think a lot of nurses go through that where we don't know which direction to go in. But I think as long as as a man in nurse, as long as we aim to inspire and to teach people, I think it doesn't matter where you go. One of the key priorities for me at the moment as a ward manager, and Edwin, I'm sure you'll share this, is we're going through a really horrible time for staff, and the last 2 years have been really, really brutal. And I think staff wellbeing has never been as important as it is now. And I think there's some statistics come out this morning regarding the increased level of sickness, regarding people's mental health and physical health following this pandemic. And I think we all have a job to do as a ward manager to try and achieve and to try and better our service. But to do that, for the people that you need on board, I believe, is our staff and our colleagues. And I think if we can try and do our best to make sure our staff are looked after and feel valued, we can really boost productivity by being able to, if they know that we've got them at our first thought as well as our patients, then they'll put the patients first for us as well. So I suppose that some of the challenges that Phil, I know you said some of the comments that you get when you tell people you're a nurse, or when you walk into a bay, as you say, and they see you male and they say, oh, doctor. Or actually just yesterday I had a patient's relative really sort of confused and didn't know how to address me. And they could see I was in navy blue uniform, and they didn't want to call me a sister. They said, and they felt quite embarrassed because they didn't know how to address me. And I said, you could still call me what you like, James, ward manager, sister, charge nurse. To me, I'm very proud of what I do as a male nurse, and all the nurses I work with are proud of them, proud of us ourselves. And I think it is important to change the as we move forward. But I think it's more about education. And as I said earlier, I didn't have any exposure to, or I didn't learn about healthcare or the NHS when I was younger. And it wasn't a job until my family had gone through nursing that maybe I hadn't considered at all. And a lot of my friends were completely identical to me in that they'd never had any exposure either. And that's why when I was that 17-year-old boy working in a care home, my friends would take the mickey out of me and say all sorts. And I think luckily for me, I was very proud, and I saw my family and what they do, and I was very sort of open to the comments, and I think it really helped me to then educate them and make them understand what nursing is as a role. But I do feel as if young lads going into nursing, they may be, they will probably incur some comments, or like you say, some feedback that they may not like. And I think it's about educating the wider population about, like you say, men can be nurses, and it's a really brilliant career for us to go into. I think a success story for me would be being able to inspire everyone as a nurse. For me would be a great success story. And it's not just about me looking at men and inspiring men, but just as a man in nursing, to be able to have people come up to you and say, you inspire me, or I'd like to be where you are, I'd like to be like you as a nurse. I think for me, that's the biggest success, is being a good role model to all nurses and to the wider population, and showing what nurses are about and what we can do. I think that would be my greatest achievement, and hopefully I can make my family proud in that sense. I hope I haven't taken too long. I didn't keep an eye on the clock, but I really appreciate everyone listening and taking the time out of their day to be here today as well. So thank you very much.
You're all good, James. Thank you so much for your presentation. Stick around, we'll have some questions for you shortly. Thanks so much. Next up, we'd like to welcome LSBU children's nursing student, Charlie Kennedy. Charlie, we'll hand over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. And it's been really lovely to hear from all the other speakers today about all your stories. Especially as a student myself, it's really inspiring to hear that. So thank you so much for that. Just wanted to start by saying that. And I'd like to say as well, good morning to everyone. I hope you're having a nice day so far and enjoying the call. But yes, my name's Charlie Kennedy and I'm a final year children's nursing student at LSBU. So I'm just kind of going to talk a little bit about myself, how I got here and how it's been so far as a man in nursing. So I'm quite local, relatively local. I came from Kent, basically, an area called Medway. And I actually went to an all boys school, which I'll talk about in a minute, because that was really interesting change. So I went to an all boys school for secondary school, and for sixth form, it was the same school. I was there from, I don't know, about 11 to 18 years old. So quite a long time there. You know, it was a very interesting environment to go to school in. And I came from that environment to then come into my cohort where I would say there's about 100 to maybe 130 pupils who were in my cohort, and about 3 of us were guys. And you know, I don't have any siblings, so I don't have, you know, any experience of that. And I came into this environment, and it was kind of quite nerve-wracking for me, quite a shock. But you know, I'm here in third year now, and I've really enjoyed the journey that I've been through with all of my cohort. And my cohort in particular is very diverse as well, in terms of the fact that we've got lots of mothers on the course as well. We've got lots of people from different ethnic backgrounds, and that's really helped me as well. Because where I'm from is not very diverse area, where I'm from, the town I'm from. So it's really nice to get an exposure, and particularly coming into London, and that's helped me grow my experience as a nurse, and to help me influence the care that I give to my patients. And I really value that experience that I've had. You know, as the other thing is that none of my family was in nursing. I actually originally did nursing because I wanted to do medicine afterwards, ironically, but I fell in love with nursing as I did the course. And, you know, I absolutely love it, and I've completely changed my mind, and I've decided, you know, I'm going to stick with nursing. I absolutely love it. But it's interesting as well, some of the comments that Phil, again, I know that James brought up on this as well, some of the comments that Phil said that he's had, and even, you know, just being in my third year, I've already been exposed to a lot of those comments, unfortunately. So I was, for instance, in my first year, I got a job working in a healthcare assistant role in a intensive care unit. It's actually an adult intensive care unit during COVID, because of everything that was going on. Kind of wanted to do my bit. And I had people coming at me saying, "Oh, are you the doctor?" I'm like, "No, I'm not the doctor." And it's very, I definitely had that exposure. And even when I was, you know, I've been on the wards at my host trust, and, you know, at LSBU we wear this very obvious tunic with the LSBU logo on it and everything, and people still come up to me and think I'm a doctor, and ask me questions, you know, medical related towards that side of things. And I'm like, no, I'm not the doctor, you know, I'm a student nurse, I can help you with this kind of thing. But I definitely found that very interesting, and I've certainly had comments as well. I think in my second year on one of the wards I was working on, there was one changing room for the whole ward, and I was told, even when it was empty, I was told, no, you can't change in there. And I was like, well, where am I going to get changed, you know? And I found that quite discriminating. So it's definitely been some experiences, but also some very positive experiences as well. I've spoken to a lot of people who said that that's kind of really inspiring to see a man in nursing. And I've been on a lot of wards where I'm the only guy on the ward, and it just brings a different perspective, I think, particularly with our patients. You know, sometimes I find I work in children's nursing, obviously, and with the boys, sometimes they just get along with just to have someone that's a bit more similar to them to chat to is just really nice for them. And I'm definitely of the view that we need a lot more men in nursing, because I think it brings such a fantastic perspective to have, as diversity does, to bring that different perspective in to different scenarios and with our patients. And I think it helps us deliver kind of the best person-centered holistic care that we can, which is, I think, as James said, is a really essential core part of nursing. And, you know, you know, even only having been here, you know, as a student for a few years, I've already been trying to inspire people to do nursing. I've had parents that I've chatted to, and they've gone, oh, you know, I think it might be difficult for me to do it, but I'd really like to do it. And I'd go away and I'd kind of do a bit of write a research thing, you know, write a bit of paper and write down, you know, these different routes they can do, and give them some websites, and then go, well, here you go, you know, if you're interested, you know, because I think we really need more nurses. Obviously, we've seen from the pandemic that we need so many more nurses, and I think those nurses need to come from all different backgrounds and areas, because in nursing we care for people from all different kinds of ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, people of different genders, etc. So it's really important that our nursing workforce itself is diverse, I think, to help cater for that and to help our colleagues, you know, educate ourselves on how we can do the best for our patients. So my aim as someone who's going to qualify relatively soon, as scary as that is I really want to encourage more people to come into nursing. I really want to be one of those people that's going out there. You know, I've always had this dream of going to schools and talking to people about doing nursing. And I think it's important to see that role model and to see someone that people can follow and say, yes, I want to do nursing. I've seen all these different experiences. And I think we need to move away from the stigma that's associated with being a man in nursing. You know, I remember watching Meet the Parents. I don't know if any of you've seen that. And there's the male nurse in that, and he's, you know, and he gets all that stigma from the parents. And I always remember watching that movie, and I think back to that, and I'm like, you know, there's still a lot of that stigma around, and I think it's really important to address that issue. But yes, I don't think I have too much more to say, but thank you so much for letting me speak. I'm happy to, of course, take any questions. But yes, I've absolutely loved my journey so far, and I just want to end by saying, like, I really hope that we can get more men into nursing. And I think it's really important for this, you know, this platform that we have here to address that, and not just more men, obviously, more people from all different backgrounds. We've had a lot of people today talking about people from BAME backgrounds as well, and talking about their own experience. And I think that's really important as well, especially in the UK as well. We have such a diverse range of people. It's really important to kind of address that. But yes, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Great to hear about your experience. I'd like to invite all of our panel to join me on screen now, including Phil, and we have some time for audience questions. So we'll just give everyone a moment. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, and we'll just wait for James to join us. There you go. Perfect. Cool. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you all. We have lots of fantastic comments, and I'm sure you've seen all of those in the chat box, but we'll start with some questions. So for our audience, if you have a live question, we would love to hear from you. It's always great to get some live dialogue and conversation going. So if you have a live question, this is super relaxed and informal, please just pop your camera on, signal to me that you'd like to ask a question, and I'll come over to you. Alternatively, you can use the raise your hand function as well. But we'll get started with a couple of questions in the chat box. So Malik has a question for Wellington. How do you see mental health nursing today compared to when you started? And how is the NHS promoting mental health awareness within migrant communities, especially with men?
Thank you. Great question. I think mental health has shifted a lot, I think, from the time I started. So when I came into nursing in 2001, there was a lot of men in mental health nursing. The percentage was quite high. I think really I was speaking to some colleagues in some of the teams which we've got, where I'm asking where the men have gone. So actually we've got very few men in nursing now, in mental health nursing especially. And I think what that presents is actually a different risk, because I think really the men, I think when, especially for the community teams, we've got just female and no men in those teams, I think the clinical risk kind of goes up. But there's also something about when it comes to men's mental health, I think it's probably continued to be a challenge around the stigma which comes with it. And I think it also, there's actually an impact on different cultures where there's this whole assumption that actually, especially when you're a man, if you say you are not feeling well, say you are depressed, it's seen that actually you are saying you are weak. So there's this whole part around actually men, and that ego part which comes with it. Actually, that sometimes men, what I've seen, I think really in mental health is like with men, they don't come to services early. Sometimes when they're actually coming to look for help, it will be a bit late. So you end up having more men on section on mental health act. So there's something about actually how we can start changing some of that narrative to say actually it's okay not to be okay. And I don't think men feels comfortable to say actually it's okay not to be okay.
Thank you. Would any of our other panel like to come in on that? We've already established that International Men's Day is a great way to tackle this issue of men's mental health. Do any of our other panel have any thoughts or feelings about this?
I can come in. I was reading something today about male suicide and still horribly high numbers that we are seeing there. So again, I think International Men's Day has so many positive purposes that we must look at, that how we can look at role modeling men's health, specifically look at men's mental health, and from what James was saying about kind of the mental health of our healthcare and NHS colleagues, that's really something that we need to look at. And of course, everyone's mental health is really important, but it's great that we can actually highlight some of the differences, especially when we look at male suicide. I've been impacted with a male friend who took his own life. So I think it's a really important thing that we talk about.
Thank you. Oh, Sean, you've popped your camera on. Wait till you pop up. There you go. We'll wait. Oh, there you go, Sean. Over to you.
Sorry, I don't think my camera's working.
No problem.
I'm not sure why. But yeah, no, as you might have said, seen in the chat, like I don't have a question as such, but just a couple of observations. I think one thing we can work towards is a lot of the issues I think arising from sort of men in nursing and patients not seeing men as nurses, I think, is uniforms. A lot of trusts and universities don't have separate uniforms for men and women, and I think that really creates barriers to how we can progress in nursing as men. And also, as a side note, I've just popped up that I'm going back to my old school, which is an all-boys school, at a careers event to do a talk about encouraging more of the boys to consider going into nursing. So if anyone would like to support me in that, or if anyone has any ideas or anything that they think that I should talk about, then let me know.
Thank you. Does anyone have any ideas or thoughts off the cuff for Sean?
I think that's brilliant, Sean. I think Charlie, obviously we heard say about schools, and I've popped in the chat about it, and I think it's such, and I mentioned I had zero exposure, zero idea of nursing and healthcare as a young lad in primary school and secondary school. And I don't think, like you say, Sean, I think keeping it quite simple and just explaining to them what you do, what the fantastic career choices you've got in nursing and where it can take you, and also how it can make you feel as well. I think touching on mental health for men, I know a lot of my friends that work in some really very busy industries such as finance and law and all these industries where they're working really long hours, like as nurses as well, and they don't seem to have the reward mentally that as nurses receive. When you come home from a horrendous day, you still feel really good in yourself because you feel like you're making a difference to people. And I think and we're also around people all the time that are quite open to talking about their mental health. And I think environments such as jobs, stereotypically such as jobs in finance, a lot of my friends, they don't feel comfortable talking at work about how they feel. And the job is to try and just keep going and increase productivity no matter what. And I think if more men were nurses, I feel they'd enjoy what we enjoy. They'd enjoy the going home and feeling really proud and feeling really rewarded by making other people feel better when they're feeling vulnerable.
Thanks, James. Calvin, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I just wanted to say in response to Sean, uniforms. I understand the traditional thing about uniforms, but for those of us who are still practicing nurses, and I still practice, is that you would see since the pandemic, most nurses have moved to wearing scrubs now. So we're just wearing one uniform. And I think we need to move beyond the identity of uniforms, but actually, how do we begin to, use our name badges, our logos, our hashtags on lanyards to show that we are men in nursing. So there are other ways other than uniforms we can look at that. That's all, Neil. Thanks.
Thank you. So that question was also echoed by Susan, who said, do you think there is something that we at the Nursing and Midwifery Council can do to influence more men to come into nursing? So we've looked at kind of like, we've gone down to kind of like schools. Is there anything else that can be done on an organisation level, whether Nursing and Midwifery Council or any others? Susan, did you want to elaborate at all?
While Susan is coming on, Neil, I'll just like to say this forum is a great forum to start with. And starting a Men in London Nursing Forum is one way we can start this, because we've become the thought leadership group for answering questions like that.
Thanks, Calvin. Susan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, put that in there because obviously as a regulator, there's only so much that we can do at the Nursing Midwifery Council, but we do have as part of our strategy the term influence, and it is about how we can influence other people. It's also about how we can engage, and it's a bit like Sean was saying about going into schools. There might be an opportunity there where we could have a conversation and we can look at how we can share some of the resources we have at the NMC for you to use in your visit out there, or even if it's possible, I could come along with you. So there are opportunities for us to engage like that, and really, so it's looking at it from your perspective. As a regulator, it's about how we can influence and also how we change perception of what the NMC does for all of the professionals on our register. So that's why I was asking that question, because it is about how we can work together in partnership. But on a second note, it's just to respond again to Sean, the Future NHS collaboration platform, where a number of people who have put themselves down as ambassadors have been going into schools, and they've got quite a lot of resources. So it might be a useful connection for you to look at what you can do more of in that space. So if you haven't got that already, you can either drop your email in your inbox and I can send you details, or you can email me at sue.west@nmc-uk.org, and I'll put my email address in the chat box too.
Thank you, Susan. Would anyone like to come in there? Phil?
I was just thinking something I've been talking about for a long time was about having a really good national advertisement plan to get people into nursing, which was really, that and that obviously needs to be really, really diverse. I don't think that there's enough going on. I remember back in the early 2000s, there was a bit of a national campaign, and it was quite hard hitting, and I still remember seeing those posters and being able to identify with them. But I think that's really what we need, and again, recognizing how complex EDI is. It's not just about having pictures of men who are nurses to try and attract men into nursing, but really showing what nursing is all about, whether that's through a TV campaign or much more visibility. I think is really important. The more people get used to seeing nursing and seeing all the different kinds of people that nursing makes up, better, I think.
Thank you, Calvin. I'll come over to you then, Edwin.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Neil. I think another thing is we need to look at the non-traditional routes. So we're talking about going back to schools and colleges and wherever. There are very non-traditional places we can recruit. And one of the things is, if you look at the principles of nursing, they're very much aligned to the principles of Islam, to the principles of Christianity, to the principles of Hinduism, Sikhism. So there are faith organizations that we don't tap into at all. And they are actually, when you talk to these men about the principles of their faith, it's aligned to nursing, and that's another way that we don't look at recruitment at all. So it's another area we need to tap in, and probably something that NMC needs to do. I know they're under a lot of stuff around their EDIs as to how they reach out to faith organizations. Thank you.
Thanks, Calvin. Edwin?
Yeah, just to add, actually, I think there needs to be more discussions with regard to looking at why are there fewer men in the nursing workforce. I think this is a good platform already, Men in Nursing Forum. I hope it can be, we have a national platform as well. So thanks to Phil for starting this. And also looking at, should more be done to strive for a gender balanced profession. And I think we have the support here from Sue from the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So thank you very much for giving us the support, because I think we need to ensure that the stigma about men in nursing can be promoted more in the national level. Probably NMC could have a portion on the website as well on how we can promote men in nursing. And obviously, I think we need to continue to inspire the next generation of nurses, because we are here to inspire you guys, those students that are in this forum. We would like to ensure that you will be looking after us in the future, because you will be our nurses in the future. Good luck.
Thank you. Wellington?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything which has been said so far. And I think I think for me, there's just something around what the system really says about men in nursing. And I think there's sometimes an assumption that actually if a man is in nursing, it's if they failed to be a doctor. I think we've really, where the thing that actually you couldn't be a doctor, then you ended up being a nurse. So I think there's that part about that. I will start to change some of that perspective around actually nursing is a solid career on its own. Actually, what are some of those pathways? How do we really sail through that? Actually, so that actually it's not. And I think there is a lot around the cultural aspect. Because I remember telling people back home that I was going to do nursing, and actually everyone was saying nursing is for ladies. Why are you doing nursing? Because actually back home in Zimbabwe, you wouldn't find a lot of men doing nursing. So culturally, there are some of these roles which are expected to be for a certain gender. So I think there's a lot more work which we need to do to challenge some of those narratives from a cultural perspective. But actually, it's really about how do we get. It's not just about getting to schools in. It's about actually trying to get a message to parents. To actually really, because if we can change some of that narrative, actually where the parents think about their child, because I was speaking to a parent last week, and I was saying to them, if your son gets straight A's at A level, and they said they want to do nursing, would you say it's okay? They said, no way. And I said, why? He says, oh, yeah, they've got straight A's, they have to do something better. So there's something about actually how we need to change that narrative around nursing not being seen as the first choice of somebody. And I think it's about actually how do we ride on the wave of COVID? Because I think what COVID has done, it has put a spotlight on nursing. But actually, I don't think we are using it enough in order to be able to drive that agenda nationally.
Thank you. James?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on two things. So Phil, when you were talking about the recruitment drive in general for male, but also for everyone, and trying to bring people into nursing, although we've had the last 2 years as such a horrible time, what an amazing platform COVID's created for TV. Healthcare has been all over the news. I think it's showed people, especially if I was a younger student now, it's definitely been on so much more exposure to the public about what goes on in hospitals, about the huge different jobs that people are doing. And I think one of the positives we can take from COVID is that exposure, that the media has made films about it. Everyone is talking about it. And I think that's probably one of the only positive twists we can take from a pandemic, is that hopefully it will boost exposure to people. And then secondly, Wellington, I really like the comment about you saying that sometimes people think nursing is a second choice career. And I think I received a compliment from a friend's parents. And at the time I took it really well and thought it was a really nice compliment. And they turned around and said, we think it's really good that you're going to go and do nursing. And I was like, why? Thinking in my head, oh, well, it's just really good, isn't it, that you're choosing to just go and do nursing? And I couldn't really understand. They hadn't congratulated my twin brother on going to do chartered accountancy. They'd not congratulated any of my other friends, but because I was doing nursing, I thought to myself, am I different? Is a nursing degree not a normal degree? I think you've cemented it in my mind, Wellington, that I'm glad you feel that way, because it's definitely there. People don't see nursing as a vocation, in my opinion. They see it as I don't know, I suppose other people might have different ideas as well. So I'll leave that one there.
One of our other attendees has asked I still feel that male nurses are looked down upon. How can we avoid that? And I think a lot of your answers around then have touched on that. Sally from our alumni and development team says, all very inspiring speakers, thank you. Can any of the panel share a moment or an example, if you have one, where you have been influential in shaping the experience of younger male nurses coming into the sector to help shape their experience in equality and inclusion as a male nurse, whether a one-to-one moment or reassurance or encouragement on a ward, or a campaign around this?
I guess I was going to come in and say, I think that events like this are really helpful. This is the second time I've done this presentation. I think just to raise and air and discuss some of the issues is really helpful. I know that when I did this presentation back in January, I had quite a lot of contact from people via Twitter, or those who were in nursing, either as a nursing student or a newly qualified nurse. So I said, yeah, I felt that too, or I think we could change this. So I think this is a really helpful discussion, but maybe Wellington, Edwin, James, or Charlie might have some more on the floor individual examples.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I think there is something, and I think being here, this platform, I think is very, very helpful. I think it gives that focus on nursing. But I think personally, I think what I've done, I think through the career, I've done in a number of work, stuff around inclusion, actually trying to promote the aspect around the inclusion, especially really around within nursing, around, because actually what I was picking up that actually the snow white peaks, as you go up in the nursing ranks, it becomes whiter and whiter and whiter. So actually there's no diversity in the senior leadership of nursing. And I think we are saying actually NHS is how many years now, and I think really to be I honestly, I think there's a part which came through Twitter, because someone tweeted it that I didn't even know. And I was surprised, I think, when people actually were tweeting, I think when I was appointed a chief nurse, and people were tweeting being the only male chief nurse in NHS. And I'm thinking, actually, how can that be? How can we be talking about one BME male chief nurse in the country? It doesn't even make sense for me. We've got over 200 something trust organizations, we've got chief nurses. So there's that part around, actually, then actually, for me, it was about how do I use that to be able to influence? So actually, then you start having a lot more conversation. So I think Twitter is a powerful tool. It's about actually how we use things like Twitter, how do we use things like LinkedIn to be able to really influence, because actually the younger generation are no longer people who use those like Facebook and all that stuff. We don't find young generation there. You find them like people do Twitter, do stuff on Instagram. So it's really about actually how do we really use the social media in order to be able to support through. And I think the other thing which I also do, I think I do the speaking to schools part. So I do a lot of actually, which is really supported through NHS England, where we go to schools and we speak to kids. And even when we're talking to them, I think really the boys in those classes, they really would be just talking about actually, but I want to be a doctor. What does it take me to be a doctor? And actually, so you even see it in the classroom, the young people, in their mindset. I think the girls are supposed to be nurses and they're supposed to be doctors. And you actually struggle. And I think I then was asking myself, actually, why are we in that space? Then I realized like that actually most of our movies, most of the thing which we do on entertainment always represent the nurse as a female and always represent a doctor as a male. So there is this whole mindset which is already when people they're growing up, because that's what they see every day. You sit down, you see a movie, and you see the consultant who comes is a male, the one who's helping, and the nurse is a female. So that's that it gets stuck in people's mindset. So it's really about actually how do we start changing that, some of that narrative. And I think really being here, speaking to this event, I think it's really, really a great place. For me, it's not something which we should be doing once a year. It's about actually how do we have this conversation throughout the year than having this conversation on the 19th of November.
Thank you, Wellington. Edwin?
Yeah, in addition to what Wellington mentioned, obviously, is the importance of us men as role models. Every time I attend activities or invited on a forum or charity events in the Filipino community and the BAME community, I always ensure that I promote nursing, not just for men, but nursing in particular. However, when they say somebody speaking in front of them, they felt inspired, they felt empowered to do and follow a career in nursing, which is fantastic. One thing as well that obviously, mentioning this in so many events, I also encourage, in fact, in my family members to do nursing, because I believe that this is the best profession in the whole world, or else I will not be in this position too. One of my nephews have actually done as well nursing, and he's now working in Saudi Arabia. So it's fantastic that they look up to us, because they're our family members, and I try to encourage a lot of my family members as well to do nursing. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlie?
I just wanted to comment on, I think it's John's put a comment about that there are many TV shows and films that show doctors as in charge of the nurses, which isn't accurate to the actual way that we run our hospitals. And I just wanted to comment on, I remember watching Grey's Anatomy, which I'm sure many people have watched, but I got really annoyed watching it because it showed the doctors doing lots of things that as nurses we do. And it didn't really show much of what, as nurses, what we do ourselves. So there's this massive perception of the doctor does all the cares and the doctor does everything. And the nurse is just kind of this assistant. And I got really frustrated watching Grey's Anatomy. I actually couldn't carry on watching it because I was just like, this is really not portraying nurses well. And I've definitely seen that through the years. And as John said, in lots of TV shows and films where we're not, I was saying this earlier, we're not portrayed as a proper profession. You know, we're not really portrayed as kind of this person to look up to. and this career to look up to, but more of this kind of subservient person. And that gets me really frustrated because, you know, there's so many skills that we have in nursing that we use all the time, that help shape, you know, our patients. And, you know, a lot of there's been surveys done I've seen before that said, you know, nurses are one of the key people that shapes the patient's experience when they're on the ward, when they're in the hospital, is nurses, because we're in contact with them all the time. And that's a big part of our job. And I think it's really important, again, at events like this, to raise, you know, the professionalism of, you know, we have the NMC, we have a regulatory body, we are a profession, you know, we have skills, and we have a code that we have to uphold. And I think it's really important that the public, and I think through COVID, the public has seen more what we do and that we are a profession, but I think we need to keep that pace up. I think we need to not let it kind of fade away, and we need to keep up that we are this professional, you know, we are professions, we are a profession, and that we do have skills that are important, and we need to keep that that awareness going through events like this, but through keeping it up. And as I think someone said before, not just, you know, today on the 19th, but continuously throughout the year, every year, we need to keep that awareness up. I think it's really important.
Thank you very much. James, do you want to come over to you whether you've had an experience where you've offered someone guidance or reassured them?
I think, I'm sure you maybe many of us have probably experienced this, is if you have, as a ward manager, obviously I line manage 35 staff, and sometimes you might find staff from other wards, like younger band 5 males, might sort of come to me for, like you say, advice, or come to me to just ask sort of questions, or almost to take them under the wing a little bit, and just to say, like, it's okay, we can do this sort of thing. And I think they maybe are not turning around and saying that they feel overwhelmed by it, but they know that you're there like a big brother type thing. If you because there's not as many of us. It's I definitely, and I didn't have somebody like that, actually. I had more, it was the older female nurse, like the sort of like the mum type scenario, where it would be, they would be my mentor. But I think it would have been really lovely to have had like an older male nurse to look up to when I first qualified. But I definitely have had that where band 5s have come and from different wards and sort of just sat in the office and talked things through. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Malik, you've raised your hand and we'll come over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sorry, I can't put my camera on. I've got my son around. Yeah, so it's just to do also with, in terms of the men. You know, most men from my background as a a migrant, and I've also worked as a support worker for 6 years plus before changing my mind to become a mental health nurse. The issue is also to do with the duration in terms of the years, going into university, before you come out to be qualified as a nurse. Some of the men don't think, and also it's because, the time you come into this country, you might be in the age of around 20 plus, getting to your 30s. So you don't see the essence of joining and also spending that 3-year period, before you start building up, let's say, a life for yourself. And some might even have family already. So it's more of the stress is there. So people don't really want to, commit themselves to that 3 years. And also the career pathway is very important. People still don't know that nursing have got different career pathway. So if we create much more awareness in that aspect, to people will understand that it's not just about, let's say, going to care for someone in the ward or this, but there are other sections that you can branch into. I think that will be my contribution for now. And thank you very much for this event.
Thank you, Malik. There are some great comments coming through in the chat box, so do take time to have a look at those. We are nearing the end of today's event, so I'm going to put you all on the spot just to close before I hand over to Phil for final summary. Do you have any final inspirational words or practical takeaways for our audience today? There's been lots shared already, but just as a round robin to finish us off. And Wellington, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think today has been really, really awesome. I think it's really, really been great. I think what I can only say, I think to men, I think is really what I finished my slide with. I think we need to move in a place where we can be saying, I can, I will, and I must. We have got an opportunity to make it different. I think it's really, if it's going to be, the men percentage, which is 11% now in nursing, is going to change, it's really up to us. So we all have collective responsibility in order to shift that. If you tell the next person how good it is to be a male nurse, they will tell the next person, they will tell the next person. Let's make it a conversation which we have every single day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Edwin?
Thank you. I think we just need to make sure that we're also equal with women, that we are also vulnerable, and we need to look after our mental health. I had COVID in January, and I'm still suffering from the long-term COVID. A lot of us probably thought, okay, I'm the senior nurse on shift during that night. I had one vaccine, and I thought I'm Superman. You know, we need to look after ourselves as well, looking after patients well, but make sure that we protect ourselves too. Second, obviously, is if you feel disheartened, or if you have any, if you've got problems with regard to anything, either with nursing career, education, or student nurses not getting through the right grades that they wanted to do, please persevere. As I've told you earlier, perseverance is important, and you will make it. Make sure to have faith with yourself, and obviously ensure that we still have the compassion in nursing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James?
Yeah, I think going back to something that Calvin said at the start, and Edwin, you just touched on it, is about this is a forum to improve gender relations and to really use our voice to try and bring more men into nursing. But I think it's about utilizing the women's voice as well, which is why having women engage here is so important, because their voice is arguably bigger than ours in nursing. And I think just how in life men's voices are sometimes often heard more than women's, we have to use our men's voice to help and help gender relations for women too. Equally so, I think it'd be really good for us to educate and to use the women's voice to try and bring more men into nursing, because it's going to be a difficult task for just men to do it. And I think I'm sure the women will help us and join us on the journey of trying to improve relations. And I think looking at it from that stance, stuff like this forum where we can get as many people involved from as many different backgrounds, I think that's the key, is to try and utilize this sort of platform. So thank you for Phil for organising this and asking me to come along as well.
Thank you. Finally, Charlie, and then Phil, over to you.
I think I pretty much agree with everything that's been said, really. Just to keep up, keep up this kind of awareness of what's going on, and to keep continuing on with having this conversation. And as James said, I think I agree definitely, involving everyone in the conversation, not just kind of us men talking to each other, but involving everyone in the discussion. And that's really going to help us move it forward and have everyone's voice heard, so that we can ultimately, hopefully, improve the system. So I completely agree with what's been said. It's been really nice to speak today. So yeah, thank you, Phil, for inviting me along. And as a student, I just want to repeat that it's been really inspiring to kind of hear everyone's stories and everything from some of the nurses that have spoken today. So thank you so much. But yeah, it's been really great. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. So 5 minutes until the end. So I guess I echo everything that the panel have discussed. I probably got more out of this session than I've given, and it was a lot of work with Calvin and Neil to kind of get here. But I've learned so much. I've got so much to think about. I really think about Sue's comment about actually things that make us different mustn't separate us. That's so important. And going back to the EDI agenda and the work that we have to put in. Actually, if we work all together, we can achieve much more. So a massive thanks again to Wellington, Edwin, James, and Charlie. Thank you so much for coming and sharing, supporting, and bringing everything to the discussion, as well as everyone here. Thank you for listening, sharing, coming on camera, putting things in the chat box. And I've been trying to keep up with Twitter, but as a man, I'm not always good at multitasking. So I will get to more when I can. I guess this last part of the session was to think about the next steps, but I don't think we have to think too hard, because I've heard that this is important. This is something that we need to keep talking about. It's not a one-off yearly event, so we're going to come back together on November the 19th, 2022, and to have similar conversations. We're going to keep on talking. Such an opportunity to have some people from the NHS here, to have some from South Bank, but also people like Sue West and Nicole Mcintosh from the NMC and from HEE, to see how we can have these conversations throughout London and nationally as well. So I guess it's to be continued. I know that Neil's given me some food for thought about other men in nursing events that we can do, linked to other events that are going on that we can celebrate. That's events like Black History Month, and we have Pride Month. And we have so many opportunities, but we don't just have to limit it to attaching it to a event like that. We can, I think we've heard that we can do this now in our own right. So yeah, if anyone does have any ideas, suggestions, please pop them chat, Twitter, contact me via email. I'll pop my contact details up again. This has been recorded, so I was going to put this on the university YouTube channel. Is that right, Neil?
Yeah, it'll be shared on our YouTube channel, and with everyone who registered for today's event, so they can share it to ensure that the event has an impact beyond the event itself. So, and if you opted in to hear about future events, then we will be in touch.
Lovely. And I think between us all, we're all avid tweeters. So I think please do keep in touch, connect, network with us, so we can talk about this. So there you are, Neil, 11:59. I'll hand over to you for the closing.
Great timing. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will be in touch soon with our next event. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone, thank you.